Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ramblings of a Designer. We are a bi-weekly podcast and we talk about the latest in graphic design news from around the web. Hey, my name is Terry and I'm one of the co-hosts. I'm a UX UI designer from the Bay Area and I help bridge the gap between products and their end users. And Laszlo?
Thank you, Terry. My name is Laszlo. I am a UX developer from the Austin area. I specialize in front-end engineering as well as being an advocate for accessibility. And today we're going to be going through a portfolio review with Scott Wong.
Scott, thank you so much for joining us. But before we go into that, I want to introduce James Donnelly. James was actually on our podcast. He brought a lot of great insight and stuff. I asked James if he could come back and help us with this. So James, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me back again. Looking forward to being able to root for you, Scott.
All right, here we go. Okay, so anyway, let's give a little background on Scott. So Scott is a UX designer and engineer. He's from Los Altos, California. He graduated from Purdue University in industrial engineering in 2017. Laszlo, I think you and him might have a lot in common. He is working as a quality engineer for Honda, where he collaborates with suppliers to develop new parts for the future of Honda. So, Scott, if you can tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hey, everyone, and thanks again for having me on this podcast. I guess I'll start off by telling you how I got into the field of UX. And I guess after a few years of working as an engineer in manufacturing, I guess I wasn't totally satisfied with my role. And I started kind of looking at other career paths and kind of questioning what I really was looking for in my next job. And what I identified was I really enjoyed working with people. I really liked products and I liked business. And so when looking into potential jobs, I found UX design. And I found that it kind of is the marriage of all three of those interests of mine. You have the opportunity to interact with lots of people. You're working with new technology and products, a lot that the world has not seen before. And it also kind of blends in business in there as well, because you are ultimately, helping a business move forward with your UX design. So that's kind of how I found out about the field. And then from there, I actually enrolled in the Careerfoundry UX design bootcamp, which kind of gave me the foundation to be a productive UX designer. And from there, I looked for, some side projects to kind of be able to apply my skills and knowledge. And I actually found a startup company in Chicago that was started by one of my college classmates. And I got involved with that, designing their responsive web app. And that will actually be the case study that we'll be focused on today. It's still a work in progress. We're pretty much at the point of a high fidelity prototype. But yeah, I'm really interested in hearing your guys' feedback on today's case study.
That's great.
Oh, okay.
Scott, I think that you actually have a lot of things that are going really well automatically on your portfolio. So something that I tell everyone when I'm working on them and building their portfolio is have something that's going to be attractive to someone that's viewing your portfolio and really explains who you are pretty much right away. So I love that you have a nice colorful image of a night sky, and then the text flows really nicely into that, just showing I'm an engineer turned designer. There's no question who you are and what you do, and within that one sentence, we're able to understand your background and where you are. So I think getting into that right away is just a really great way to start your portfolio. So nice job so far.
It looks like Laszlo is checking something out. So Laszlo, do you want to kind of speak about that a little bit?
Sure. So the first test I'm kind of going through is seeing if it's fully responsive, because James, I'm not sure if you would agree with this, but this is just my impression that most people, be it hiring managers or anyone, will most likely look at something like this for the first time on their mobile device.
Yep.
It's kind of rare that somebody looks at this on a actual computer nowadays, and those first impressions can be critical. And when I was resizing, it seems like this specific one isn't fully responsive, but that's just an observation.
Laszlo, I think that's a very good point. And I'm personally looking at a computer, and I typically look on a computer, but that's because that's how I do my job. But I think you're absolutely right that the average person that is reviewing this is going to be looking at it on a mobile phone. I know so many clients of mine that a lot of times when they're looking at portfolios, their company sites are restricted, so they can't review portfolios on their websites or on their work computers, so they're looking at it on their phone, make sure they're doing it during the day. So I think that's a really important factor.
Yeah, it is, because with me, I look everything on my phone, because if you're busy and you're traveling and you don't have time, basically if you have 5 minutes in between meetings, look, oh, here's a candidate. I'm going to take a look at their portfolio. And if it's not responsive, then it's like, okay, well, maybe not.
Right.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Right. And if you're and I see you've done some work in fully responsive web apps. And then there's that kind of a mismatch if you see the project that says, I've worked on this one project, it was fully responsive, but they're looking at this on their phone and it isn't responsive itself. It's just kind of like crossing your T's and double dotting your I's and all that.
Okay, that's good feedback. I created the website in Wix, and I think at one point it was optimized for mobile, but I guess right now it's not reacting the way I initially thought it was. So I'll go ahead and take a look at that again. I'll see what Wix is doing in the background.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's another thing you can do. Reach out to your friends and family, and just have them test it, and whatever they see, they can send you screenshots as well.
Okay, that's good advice.
Okay, so Laszlo and James, where do you guys normally go to find out of the candidates first? Do you go to their projects, or do you go to their about section? Me, I go to their about section.
I always go to the projects. Go ahead, James.
No, go ahead. I'm in the same part with you on this.
Right. No, I usually go to the projects because that's typically like their resume, what experience will be drawing from for the role they're seeking. So that's where my eyes go. And then if that passes the sniff test, then I try to learn more about the individual. But it is mainly about standing out and making sure that the substance for that focus of getting that role is most vetted, because sometimes when you're looking through these, you're given a stack of maybe 20 plus portfolios, and you don't really have a lot of time to go through each one in depth.
Interesting. How about you, James?
So on my side, I definitely look at projects first, because typically I am pulling your information from either LinkedIn or one of the other job application services. And so I already know the little bit about you. I probably have already read your resume and gotten your portfolio from there. So I'm going in right now to see your work and see your process. So definitely, I like on here how you are able to show through images first that the product here is both mobile, web, and on iPad. So yeah, that to me shows already that this product is reactive and able to work in different areas, and gives me a sense and idea of the types of stuff you've worked on already, which is good.
Yep.
Okay, I think I do it backwards. I always go to that about page. I want to know who you are, what you do, and what type of person you are, because I'm going to be spending 8+ more hours with you. So that's just what I do. Like I said, everybody's just a little bit different. So that's why I wanted to ask Laszlo and, especially James, and what he faces as well. Okay, Scott. So what case study did you want us to go through?
If we could go through from start to finish, that'd be great.
Okay. So Laszlo's going to open it up. Okay. So let's just kind of scroll down first and just kind of look at everything. Unless James or Laszlo, you have something to say, just hop right into it.
So I got a chance to kind of look at this a little bit before. One thing I do like is that you put what your role is. This is something that I coach anyone that I'm working on them with, is really define what you did. I also like to put too is if you are part of a team that's working on this, put what your team members' roles are too. I think especially in your position, what that really will come across to a hiring manager or someone looking at your portfolio is that you're a team player and you know how the process of an app design process works. And I think that if you were also the sole designer, that should also be put in there too. You really want to make sure that there's no room for guessing on that type of stuff. So that's something I want to say.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
I'm not sure if this is just me, but these kind of look like they're actionable to me. And I
Yeah.
want to click on them.
When I looked at it.
Yeah, me too. Because I think they're like buttons. I'm going to hop to the research or I hop
Right.
to define. So they look like tiles.
Okay. Do you have any maybe advice on making it not appear to be a button and interactive, or?
Maybe just using something closer. This looks like more of a timeline where you're showing the process. So Terri can probably jump into this, but I was thinking something more connected, smaller outline squares, or using arrows, some way of indicating that this is a flow.
Yeah, I would
instead
agree.
of a carousel.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it.
Some sort of graphic. Okay, so we have additional changes, working to startup and its limited resource provided, and additional challenges. This section, what I really like is basically how the way you use the bold and then you use the 1, 2, 3. It's very clearly, I can read it. It's not too much information. I can actually set and read each one, because I've seen a lot of portfolios, they like stick everything in there in this like small space.
I was saying just like a really simple design point that I like is the line break. I like how it goes with kind of your flat design that you're going for, very, very plain, but bold, but keeps it very separated.
So let's continue to go down a little bit more. Okay, got the point of view. Again, I like the spacing, and then we have the personas. So any tips on those, anybody?
I like the aesthetic. I was curious. So what kind of industry are you aiming for? And the reason I ask is because the more enterprise you go, the more large scale you go, the more significant accessibility is. And I think that's one of those things that companies are going to start kind of vetting for, using tools like Axe to just see if you're thinking in that frame of mind. Not sure if anybody else has any thoughts on that.
It's definitely huge, because that's going to be law pretty soon anyways. They are definitely going to see that as well.
Yeah, to answer your question, I am trying to kind of move into a company that makes, I guess, consumer-facing products. So like mobile apps, responsive web apps. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I realize that's pretty broad, but at this point, I don't really have any specific, I guess, industry that I want to go into.
Yeah. So right now, what Laszlo is doing, he's using Axe to see if anything is not accessible. It could be like an alt tag, or it could be a color, or it can be a font size.
Font sizes even.
Yeah, font size is huge.
The concern, you can only do so much though, because if you're using something like Wix where you're building on a platform, a lot of it is out of your control. So there's some grace there, but yeah, just a tidbit of advice.
Okay,
keep going. Okay, so it said here are some issues that user identify. Okay, so you're just showing each section, right, from here, Scott, just from the data entry. I'm not sure about everybody else. Do you think these should be, I don't want to say numbered, but maybe some, visually speaking, more in a enclosed case? So what's your thought about that, James?
So something that I really like to, I don't want to say harp on, but really make sure is something that goes on with a portfolio, is that it builds a narrative. And I think I talked about that last time I was on here, and making sure that you're keeping within like a certain style guide for your presentation. So keeping the same context of how like it was in the beginning when you wrote additional problems, putting in that same type of style is going to come across to higher level. Just because when you're working on products, you're working within a style guide, and that might be the way to kind of think about when representing your work here as well, is keeping that same type of theme, that working within your own style guide for your website.
So when you're talking about style guide, so what section are you referring to, James?
So like what you commented on before, saying you really liked the bold and the numbering, and keeping up with that kind of theme when delivering important points.
Scott, do you have any more questions or comments so far?
I think that makes sense. Yeah, like keeping with a consistent, I guess, organization structure and way of displaying information. makes sense to me.
Let's continue. Okay, that's the same thing. And then the frequent, okay, then line. Okay, keep going. Information architect. Okay, any comments here?
The graphic looks unfinished. I'm not sure because everything else is very like clean and colorful. This flow tree or this org structure looks out of place.
Yeah, it looks flat. It doesn't have that same vibe have you had before. Again, as James was talking about, the same theme, I think. Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Well, I would say, like, knowing that IA is typically not part of a visual design, that this probably looks like it was actual work, that I would say either make it be known that this is like actual work that was for the IA, or recreated to make it more visually compelling for a presentation. I think it can go either way, but with what we were talking about before, if you want to kind of keep with that visual theme, then maybe spruce it up a little bit.
Maybe like add some color, maybe take some of the blues from, I don't know, some of the other sections and just make it consistent.
Right, just kind of maintaining that design language you start off with and then making sure everything fits within. And like James said, like if you can kind of outline, for example, put example above it or something, it makes it clear that this doesn't necessarily need to fit in with the rest of the site, but it's more of a real world example. Otherwise, it looks like you potentially threw it in the night before because you forgot to add it and there's not enough context.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so let's scroll down. Okay, so these are your sketches. Okay. James, Laszlo, any comments?
And I like the storyboarding, the raw, real-world storyboarding.
So
this is good for me.
Okay, keep going.
And once again, I'm not sure how much control you have on this, but depending on what this is being viewed on, it would be nice if you could click on it to see a full res view. I'm not sure what you think about that, James.
I think anytime thinking about accessibility and it being reactive is always helpful. And something like that, like where like I would think that I want to click on and then it actually worked, would definitely stand out to me. As well, too, when doing these sketches, was this at this part of your design process where you were doing the sketches, or were you doing it before, too? Because I know some will do the sketches after they do the research and put that in the process. And so I just want to make sure that this is flowing in the way that you did the project.
Correct, yeah. So it did start with user research and then progressed to sketches eventually. So chronological.
Okay, so this is all chronological then. That's why I want to make sure. I want to make sure it flows into your process, just because that's something that like I look for, is to make sure that like your process is going in the correct order.
Okay, that makes sense.
So these are your mid wireframes. Oh, nice. I like how you put Figma in there, so we know you're using Figma and what type in the title too. Okay. Any comments, Laszlo or James, on this part?
You commented on what I would comment on.
Okay, so touche.
Yep.
All right.
Kind of like a passive introduction into tools you are aware of and functional with.
Style guide. Scott, I really, really like how you use the space and the color with this, because I can read it. Even with the header, the head 1, the head 2, the head 3, the head 4, and I think it says body. Sorry, my eyes aren't that good. O1 and O2. I think the space is really, really nice. I'm able to see it on the left side too.
Yeah, just one. I like the aesthetic and it's really well placed. And I think another focus in design or even UX is pixel perfectness. So just a little nitpick would be making sure that the bottom of this text is baselined with icons on the right. I'm not sure if that's just me over criticizing, but those are little things I notice as a dev.
Yeah, I would have to agree. James, comments?
So those are things that myself or the average recruiter is not going to notice, but this is a great point that recruiters are not looking at always at the same things as hiring teams are. But now that it's pointed out, that's a really good point.
See, that's why having Laszlo and James on here is perfect.
And just to give some perspective, I'm looking at this from the frame of like a dev lead in the past where they ask you, we need to hire someone, here's a list, pick somebody you think we should move forward with. So that's after a recruiter and then before we hit the hiring manager. So there's multiple phases to the kind of sifting of candidates. And when it goes through like a tech person, it's very critical. Just an FYI.
Good to know. Okay.
Recruiter's definitely the easiest phase.
Okay, so let's scroll down. Okay, just for me on this, I'm not sure if the images, if they are too small.
Yeah.
Because when I look at it, it's like it's very scrunchy. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. James Laszlo, do you have thoughts?
I think that if this was going to the same point that like if you could like click on it and make the images larger, then it could flow like this, and if not, then make it more separated and a little bit more organized on what you're trying to show.
Yeah, because here you can always stack the images too.
Right. And one thing I would maybe suggest as an alternative if you're trying to show off essentially a fully responsive experience, instead of trying to show the entire view in an image, I've seen others show like a frame of a device, and then you only see what's viewed within that device, and then it's a GIF. So it rotates, and then you see it fill the view, or it switches to a wider view, and you just see it adapting throughout the different phases. I'm not sure if that's overkill for something like this, but maybe bringing a little more life to it. With the size these are right now, the content is almost unreadable.
Yes.
Laszlo, I really agree with that, and I don't think anything is overdone in a portfolio. I think those little things will make you stand out and go above and beyond. Like I know, like for me, when sometimes there's like some sort of movement or ability to interact, that definitely makes it stick out a lot more. So if there's a way to show either a live prototype that they can click through, or as Laszlo said, like a GIF that it kind of flows through it, and then having a page where you can see the images so you can dig into it more in like a page by page process, that would be awesome.
Scott, do you have any questions for us so far?
That's all really good advice, actually. I didn't really think about that, and I mean I will have to kind of look into GIFs because that'll be a first for my portfolio, but I think that's really a really good recommendation that I'll probably end up implementing at some point.
You hear it here first between James and Laszlo, the professionals. Okay, so let's continue. And I think that's pretty much it, right? And you're just saying these are the next steps.
So something that I would potentially suggest doing as an end part is a takeaways or a results section. I think that's something that is always very valuable, not only to someone like me, but to a hiring team to see, did things go as you expected them to? What changed, what didn't? What were challenges you came across the way before that you weren't expecting to happen?
It's true.
Yeah,
that
that's
answers
good.
Some of those questions that naturally come up in an interview. And if you can answer as many as possible before they even talk to you, you always get what is a moment you had to overcome, a complicated moment or a big issue you had to overcome. And if you present those in your journey of a project, that's ideal.
Yeah, good point. Okay, Scott, any more questions for us?
Yeah, I think that was all really good advice. And I did have kind of the reflection section at one point, but I kind of took it out because I was still kind of midway through the project, so I wasn't sure if it was appropriate to leave that in there or not. But I definitely agree with the points you guys made, and I'll definitely add that again. I guess since we're back at the top of the page, I did have a quick question. When, I guess, showcasing a responsive web app, like on this top illustration, does it make sense to show the same screen on each device, or would you prefer to see like maybe different screens on each device just to kind of show more of what the website would look like? Or I'm not sure if you guys have an opinion on that or not.
I prefer what you have here where it's the same view across because you can see how it reflows.
Okay.
As a recruiter, I'm probably not noticing that.
Okay.
Well, I actually agree with Laszlo, but at the same time, it would be kind of cool to see other screens in there somewhere. other screens of the app actually in there as well. Because so far, we've only seen the main screens here, right? So when you go down, I don't see the rest of the app, right? It's not like, okay, well, there's this. And as you keep going, I don't see like a showcase of your screens.
Okay. I think that's where the GIF will come in handy.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I'll definitely have the GIF then.
Okay, cool. So Scott, thank you so much. We're going to be wrapping it up. So Laszlo, so where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's pretty much it. How about you, Terry?
Oh, well, they can find me on LinkedIn, and then they can find me on Twitter. Handle name is Flaccid Inc. And TikTok and Instagram's FlaCcidInc.designs. And James, where can they find you at?
I'm as exciting as Laszlo. You can find me on LinkedIn at James Donnelly.
All right, we got two exciting. And Scott, where can they find you at?
I'll have the same exact response as the rest of them. You find me on LinkedIn and my portfolio.
All right, sounds good. Again, James, thank you so much for coming on again and basically helping us with this, and Laszlo, and then also Jimmy for helping us taking notes. And then also, if anybody's listening to this, if you guys want to have your reviewed by us and James, let us know. You can find us anywhere on set. So to this time, aloha, everybody. Until next time. Bye.
Bye. Aloha.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time.